Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're standing in a hallway washed with late afternoon honey, where an ivory envelope sits on a console table like a swan that learned cursive. And a blue dress hangs from a doorknob, waiting to remember what courage feels like. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here and in the comments. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is. I like seeing our little constellation of night owls. Now, turn off the lights, maybe let a fan hum in the background, and let's begin tonight's journey together. The envelope arrived on a Wednesday that smelled like lemon cleaner and old paper. My name, Evelyn Brooks, curved across the front in a hand that had practiced on cake boxes. Inside, thick cardstock announced a wedding at St. Bartholomew's Church. The groom, Martin Hale, my ex-husband, recently rejuvenated by a health kick, daily juices, and a caregiver who wore white sneakers and an expression that suggested she tiptoed around miracles. The bride, Sable Kerr, the very same caregiver, promoted now from companion to fiancé in a leap that would have made any trapeze artist clap politely. There was a PS in a smaller font, family encouraged to attend, "Let's celebrate new beginnings." It managed to sound like an invitation and a dare. Light joke number 1, I held the card up to the lamp and told it, "You're very glossy for a warning." And it did not correct me. I sat, blue dress draped across my knees, and read it again, 2 months ago, while I was still learning to balance after an unexplained spill at the top of my stairs. Sable had begun to bring Martin smoothies of implausible virtue and steer his calendar like a tugboat the dentist, the trainer, the lawyer. When the divorce papers came, they were clean as glass. I signed not because I wanted out, but because I wanted air. Now the air smelled like roses and danger. I called Maya Ortiz, my attorney, and left a message. We've been invited to a wedding. Then I stared at the old photographs on the mantel. Martin, raising a champagne flute at our 35th. Me wearing a laugh I didn't have to perform. My reflection in the frame looked like a woman who could choose to stay home. She didn't. Elder wisdom for invitations that arrive with the posture of a test if your name is on the envelope. You get to decide the meaning inside. Showing up can be a boundary, not a surrender. Wear shoes you can run in, carry receipts. I opened my notebook and wrote a list that behaved like a spine key, dates for the insurance reviews. The stairfall with its neat 2-week gap before the first caregiver invoice. The sudden upsurge in cash withdrawals signaled by my bank's gentle, unhelpful bells. There were also the pharmacy receipts, sleep aids for Martin, refilled more often than his calendar claimed he couldn't sleep. I underlined the name Dr. Noah Vale, a one-visit wonder who had prescribed the restful blend and then evaporated. When people vanish in paperwork, it's either competence or cowardice. I was about to learn which. I phoned Delia Crane, a private investigator I once hired to find my mother's misplaced will. Delia, of the quiet boots and the quiet voice that makes liars adjust their collars. Bring the invitation, she said. Bring the timeline. Bring whatever's been humming in your chest that you keep mistaking for anxiety. The humming had lyrics. Sable's smile was a performance with too many previews. The way she corrected the nurse's note, he seems lightheaded too. He seems improved. The way she discouraged visits, he's resting. Come by next week, and how next week always arrived with new rules. The way she hovered when he signed anything. Like a punctuation mark, too eager to close the sentence. Quirky, odd sidebar roses at high-end weddings are often dethorned by machine blades. Zip the stems clean so guests can clutch romance without consequences. The irony is that roses grow tougher where they've been cut. The plant answers violence with more thorns. That day, my patients considered photosynthesis. I took the bus to Maya's office because buses steady me. They hold strangers without requiring backstory. Her conference room smelled like lawyerly coffee and victory. She scanned the invitation, then my notes, and blew out a breath that meant arithmetic. "We'll subpoena bank footage for the dates of those cash pulls," she said. "Also, I don't like your stair fall. We'll get the EMT report if Sable was on duty." The timing matters. People forget that clocks are witnesses. "Do I go?" I asked. "Absolutely," she said. "Gathering context is not crashing. You're a historian with lipstick." Light joke number 2, I told her I'd upgrade to lip gloss for better archival shine. She said gloss was permissible if paired with sensible heels. I dropped by Delia's next. She fed her printer the invitation the way a detective feeds a clue into a machine with manners. "We pulled public records on Sable," she said. "Alias runs, prior marriages, deaths close to money, pharmacies. If Dr. Vale is paper heir. We find the fan." She paused. "Bring a gift that can sit near her all wedding long." "A what?" "A necklace," she said, opening a velvet box like a stage. Inside lay a modest strand of pearls whose clasp wasn't. "Pin Mike," Delia said. "Legally, you'll be in a public ceremony. What's said at a public altar is not a secret. If she mutters to a fixer hidden behind a hymn, we'll hear it." I thought of the string of old pearls in my own jewelry box, the ones Martin gave me after a fundraiser where he laughed in the right places, and I kept a list of who owed whom favors. "I'll gift them," I said. "It's something she'll believe I do." Back home. The blue dress waited like a promise I hadn't yet signed. I tried it on. The fabric remembered me. My hair gave a peace treaty to my hands. I practiced an expression that might be mistaken for grace and decided I didn't mind that mistake. The fan hummed. The lemon-scent hallway narrowed to the door and opened again. The morning of the wedding. The church bells rehearsed. St. Bartholomew's wore stone like an old surname. The pews filled with people who enjoy programs and weddings that start on time. I slid into a side pew near the aisle and kept my eyes soft, the way a biographer looks before a sentence arrives. Martin appeared at the front, nervous in the way men are when they mistake attention for approval. Sable floated down the aisle on those white sneakers, veil pinned like a treaty. Her bouquet was pale roses without thorns, stems wrapped in a ribbon that looked impatient when she passed my pew. She blinked once, a slow acknowledgement that read as both greeting and inventory. The vows began, and with them my breath lengthened, not in reverence, but in counting. I counted the seconds between her love and honor, the way her mouth stiffened on in sickness, the way Martin flubbed forsaking all others and smiled as if he were telling a joke everyone liked. I remembered his hand on my back at our wedding, warm as a sunrise. Academic phrase of the day, coercive control. The public argument that abuse is not always a bruise. Sometimes it is a map of rules that shrinks your life until your world fits in someone else's pocket. The debate asks how law should recognize it when no bone breaks. Only the calendar does. At the speak now or forever portion. I did not stand yet. I adjusted my bag, palmed the small velvet box, and prepared to rise if the tremor in my chest spelled letters I needed to read out loud. But first, I had to give Sable the gift. At the reception line, I stepped forward, met her gaze, and let my voice downshift to night radio. "These were mine," I said, offering the pearls. "They prefer rooms with music." Her smile did that porcelain slip it does when an actor wonders if the line just changed. "How thoughtful," she said, and lifted the strand with fingers that had practiced delicacy. "May I?" "Please," I answered. My hands didn't tremble. Hands respect a mission. Light joke number 3 when she leaned in so the clasp could hook. I whispered, "Try not to dance near the speaker. Pearls get jealous." And she laughed exactly once, like someone feeding a meter. Delia, 3 pews back, texted one word live. I moved to a small table near a vase roses.
stripped, stems shining with fake dew. The band played the song wedding bands play when the buffet is taller than the truth. Martin's friends shook my hand, said things like, "Life is wild and you look well," which is what people say when they aren't sure if you've stopped bleeding yet. Sable drifted to a side door between toasts. A man I recognized not from our town but from articles stood waiting thin tie. Thin patience. The face of a fixer who calculates empathy like tax. She tilted her head. The pearls catching light. The mic drank their words, induced travel, honeymoon clinic. Veil's script, probate short form. The words arranged themselves like tiles in my mind. My spine, that good old instrument, stepped into key. Maya's last message vibrated my palm. If you speak with dates, then step aside. I'll handle the nouns. I looked at the couple, their cake, the dethorned centerpiece, and the pearls that felt, briefly, heavier on the room than the chandelier. I stood. "Excuse me," I said, voice as gentle as a lullaby with choreography. "Before the cake decides to sing, may I offer a blessing in the form of a timeline?" Every head turned the way sunflowers do when the window opens. And somewhere in my bag, the notebook with the spine of facts warmed to my touch, like a hand finding its partner back after a dance. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the calendar. June 4th. I began softly. The first day Sable clocked in as companion. June 18th. My starefall unexplained, but someone had disabled the hall camera 2 hours prior. July 2nd. Care invoices double. Just as Martin's cash withdrawals begin to cluster 9 pulls under the bank's reporting threshold, all at the same 2 ATMs near Sable's pharmacy. July 9th. A new prescriber appears in Martin's chart, Dr. Noah Vale license number that maps to vapor. July 21st. My divorce papers arrive already notarized, although I had not yet met the notary. The room's temperature didn't drop, but the air remembered how to listen. A bridesmaid set down a flute she hadn't sipped. The band shortened a chord, as if embarrassment had perfect pitch. "Light joke number 1, I'm not here to play detective," I said. "I'm here to play librarian." A few smiles slipped out against their will. Librarians have range. Sable's face performed composure. The pearls at her throat performed their little job carry sound. "You're unwell," she murmured toward me. The way a doctor might speak to a radiator. "This is a day for love. This is a day," which is why I brought receipts instead of volume. I answered. I lifted my notebook. The paper looked heavier than cake. These are bank timestamps, EMT notes, the pharmacy's refill cadence, and a caregiver log that oscillates like a lie learning to walk. From the back, a familiar figure, Maya stepped forward like punctuation that improves the sentence without drawing attention. "Maya Ortiz, counsel," she said. "To the room in general, and the priest in particular, we won't detain your sacrament longer than courtesy allows, but when a care plan predates a fall, and a fall aligns with sedatives, we are in safety territory, not romance. Elder wisdom for rooms with chandeliers and secrets, if you must object. Object with dates and distances. People can argue feelings all afternoon. They cannot argue a timestamp that doesn't blink." Martin tried a chuckle that belonged to another decade. "Evelyn, this is petty." "Petty would be about cake," I said gently. "This is about blood pressure." Delia, planted near the aisle in her quiet boots, angled her phone toward the side door on my earpiece. The pearls whispered Sable to the fixer. "Hold pattern." Vale's script time for red-eye flight. Probate short form waiting at Grant and Toller. The words knit themselves into a schema-induce. Isolate. Inherit. Vanish. Academic phrase of the day. Undue influence, the public argument that consent can be engineered by shrinking a person's choices and saturating their world with someone else's preferences. Until yes is just the only exit left. Scholars debate where free will ends and manipulation begins. The law debates how many dots must connect before calling the picture what it is. The priest cleared his throat. Very human. Miss Brooks, Miss Ortiz. Can this wait until after? Father, Maya said kindly. The risk window is today. A flight leaves tonight. The doctor in their texts does not exist. The clinic is a concierge service with no admitting privileges. If we wait, the next sacrament here could be a funeral. A murmur rose, then disciplined itself. I turned to Martin, his boutonniere too tight, his eyes working the arithmetic of betrayal and embarrassment. Look at me, I said. 2 months ago, I thought the ground loved me. Then it didn't. People who love you do not make the floor their accomplice.
He blinked twice, long, and I watched a hinge move inside his chest. Sable, he asked without turning his head. Who is Dr. Vale? Out of network, she smiled, vowels sugared. Holistic. Holistic people have licenses, Maya said. This one has a P.O. box. Quirky, odd sidebar, most bank ATMs film at a shallow overhead angle 14 to 20 degrees, so faces remain visible even when hats try to lie. The result is that time, gravity, and surveillance are quiet collaborators. If you want to know who preferred cash the week a life changed. Cameras keep score without caring who's pretty. The fixer thin tie. Thin patience back toward the sacristy. Delia moved without hurrying. Stay for cake, she suggested, not smiling. He reconsidered the concept of dessert. Light joke number 2. I truly don't want to interrupt the dancing, I said. But I've watched Sable change partners mid-song before. The music continues. The man does not. A tall woman near the groom's side, Ava, the daughter, pretty in that way glossy magazines prefer, stepped forward. This is slander, she declared to the room. But her fingers betrayed her. Typing fast beneath the table linen aboard plan, she wired the pearls. Delia's screen caught it. Evidence. Dressed in chiffon. Maya lifted a hand. Palm down. Calming the crowd like a conductor who knows the strings are about to land together. We're asking for a pause and for law on the premises. 20 minutes, she said to the priest. Let Lieutenant Grant's team take statements and secure electronics before the honeymoon departs with a medication bag. The priest nodded like a man who has buried enough people to recognize a fork in the road. An usher went to the vestibule phone. The band chose silence as its next number. Sable turned to me. Intimacy feigned like perfume. You've always resented my bond with Martin, she whispered for the mic. This is punishment. No, I said, soft asleep. This is maintenance. I held up the EMT report when I fell. You told the responders I often fainted. That sentence did not exist in any record before you. You also signed my discharge instructions as spouse and care proxy, 2 hats you did not own. I slid the page to Maya. She slid it to the priest, who read and went paler than linen. The side doors opened. Blue windbreakers entered with courteous gravity. Lieutenant Grant approached the head table. Not brisk, not slow. Congratulations, he said. To no one in particular. May I borrow the bride and groom for just a moment? Ava hissed. Very softly, Plan B. The pearls drank it. Light joke number 3, private. Bedside volume, I told the lemon rose centerpiece. You're the only thing here that smells like what it claims. And the centerpiece accepted the compliment. Grant's team did tidy work phones into bags. Laptops closed. The fixer relieved of a slim metallic case that blinked the way mischief blinks when it forgets to be humble. Delia texted me a photo from earlier in the week Sable at a funeral home desk. Brochure open to pre-need planning, pen hovering over the page that spells expedited.
The timestamp yesterday at 3:12 p.m. Martin sagged onto a chair as if chairs had been invented for this afternoon. "Sable," he said, voice smaller than I remembered. "Did you plan my—" He could not finish, inside the question. However, stood a man removing himself from a story even as it tried to keep him. Sable's pivot was fast. Predators rehearse. "You told me you were tired," she said, eyes wet on command. "You said you wanted a rest. I helped you plan dignity." Maya did not blink. "Dignity comes with signatures, you understand," she said, "not with flights to clinics whose addresses lead to mailboxes." Academic phrase ad addendum. Some scholars call this medical gaslighting when a person reframes your symptoms or fears to match their plan, not your body. Families call it something else, a chill. Grant turned to Martin. "Sir, we'll want to get you evaluated by your own physician today, for now. Would you like someone you trust to stay nearby?" Martin looked at me then, not as wife or ex-wife or prop, but as the person who still knew how he took his coffee. "Please," he said. I took his hand. Bones and history and a pulse that had decided to be useful again. The room resumed breathing. The priest closed his book with a quiet that felt less like defeat than like triage. "Friends," he said gently. "Let's give the couple and the officers a few moments." People stood, the way people do when they've been reminded life has no respect for seating charts. Elder wisdom. A second serving because today earned it when danger insists on dressing in silk. Choose plain verbs. Stop, wait, call, stay. Grant nodded to Delia. "Thank the pearls," he murmured. "We'll need the chain of custody." Delia smiled one notch. "Wedding gifts are registered at evidence." Sable tried one last sentence. "For me alone. He'll come back," she said. "They always do." "No," I replied. "He'll wake up." Behind us. The band tested a note and wisely retired, outside. Sirens did not wail. They cleared their throats, professional and polite, before deciding who needed them. Inside, numbers kept not blinking, and the room, finally, believed them. I squeezed Martin's hand once, then passed him to the care of a nurse who had come as a guest and stayed as a vocation. Maya gathered our pages. Delia tucked the velvet box into a labeled envelope that would make a prosecutor's heart feel seen. And I stood for a beat longer among roses without thorns, thinking of how plants answer pruning with stubborn life. I picked up my bag. 20 minutes. Maya had promised. We'd used 18. 2 more to breathe. Then statements. Then the long, boring bridge to whatever decent thing comes next. The church exhaled us into a hallway that smelled like beeswax and decision. Lieutenant Grant parceled people into little islands of statements while ushers ferried coffee as if caffeine could notarize shock. I took a pew with Martin, who looked like a suit that wanted a chair. The boutonniere drooped, dignity. However, began to sit up. "Breathe," I said. And we did it together, 4 in. 6 out until his hands remembered what fingers are for besides gripping denial. Grant's partner. A woman with a notebook that liked verbs, crouched to our height. "Mr. Hale," she said. "We'll keep questions short and nouns useful." She asked about Dr. Vale, the clinic, who booked the flights, which pharmacy fussed over his refills. His answers came out like coins from a pocket you forgot to check. "She handled travel," he said. "She said the pills were herbs. She said I'd rest better away from home." Elder wisdom for afternoons, when the ground admits it was bribed if someone keeps saying, "Don't worry." Write down the part they refuse to name. You can't fix what you're not allowed to call by itself. Across the room. Sable sat very straight, pearls gleaming like they'd applied to grad school. Ava hovered at the edge of a curtain and typed with furious delicacy. Delia stood nearby with that museum guard stillness she uses when priceless artifacts pretend to be people. "We'll want your phone." Miss Kerr,
Grant said gently. And yours, Miss Hale. Ava's lips bottlenecked. Her thumbs, at last, retired. Maya joined us with printouts that had been waiting for a moment like this. We pulled Vale's clinic, she murmured. It's a concierge outfit in the Caymans that partners with U.S. referrers for a fee. We also have 2 prior death certificates from counties, 2 states away husbands of a Sabine K, both signed by physicians who left medicine immediately after. She laid photos on the pew between us, signatures that looked like cousins, not twins. Delia traced the care notes fonts, Maya added, downloaded templates, altered headers, light joke number 1. Even their typography lies, I said. If Comic Sans shows up, I'm pressing charges for style alone. Martin almost smiled, which is the kind of vital sign hospitals should consider charting. A parish nurse approached with water, wrapped in a napkin as if hydration prefers privacy. Drink, she instructed Martin. More. He obeyed. Not as a boy, but as a man who had decided to stop negotiating with thirst. Phones chimed faintly. My own buzzed with a message from Delia Funeral Home confirms pre-need consult, paid cash, receipt timestamp matches yesterday's CCTV. Another text followed a photo of Sable at a pharmacy counter, her hand hovering over a bag tagged doxylamine double refill. The date lined up with the night Martin started missing stair steps on the way to brush his teeth. Academic phrase of the day, proximate caused the public argument that among many events, some matter more because they push the domino that hits the others. Lawyers love it. Poets fear it. Today it wore Pharmacy Inc. and a boarding pass. Grant called Sable and Ava into the sacristy for a conversation with fewer stained glass witnesses. Delia slid into our pew. Maya will file an emergency protective order for Martin no travel. No medication changes. No access to finances by anyone not named Martin, she said. We'll also flag probate in 3 counties in case somebody tries to file a short form while we're looking at bouquets. Do I apologize to the priest for ruining his afternoon, I asked. You improved his eternity stats, Delia said dryly. That's a multi-purpose act. I walked Martin to a side room where the vestments hang and the air keeps secrets kindly. He sat and examined his hands like a man reacquainted. I didn't see it, he said. She said she was saving me. She was cost-cutting you, I said softly. You're not cheap or dead. He flinched, then nodded small. Exact, thank you, he said. And the words didn't perform. They moved furniture back where it belonged. Quirky, odd sidebar pearl clasps are little feats of engineering tiny springs and hooks pretending to be jewelry. The good ones click when closed. The better ones don't. So thieves can't hear security lock. Ours clicked when Delia retrieved it for evidence. Sound like a period, she said. End of sentence. By the time we returned to the nave, the reception had turned into a town hall where everyone had the good sense to stay quiet, Grant announced, in a tone that'd been trained on traffic and trauma. That the bride and the fixer were accompanying officers for further conversation. The groom would be escorted home with a safety plan. The cake would be distributed to parishioners who understood the doctrine of it's already paid for. Light joke number 2. Please take cake on your way out, the priest added gamely. Forgiveness comes with buttercream. Even grief let out a polite laugh. Outside, the afternoon practiced being ordinary, as if it could prove stamina without adjectives. Maya shepherded us to her office for an ex parte hearing by video urgent orders, love, fiber optic. A judge with a calm forehead read our affidavit, listened to pearls and timestamps, and signed the order, no travel for Martin without court approval, no access for Sable to his accounts, secure medications, seize devices for forensic imaging. The stamp landed like a kind gavel. My bones applauded. Martin's house. Our old house felt different as we crossed the threshold. The lemon cleaner smell had been replaced by something floral and lacy. On the counter, a smoothie sweated, half drunk, like a performance that missed its cue. Delia moved through the rooms with a reverent eye, photographing pill organizers. The hall camera with the severed wire. A care chart posted by the fridge that recorded improved sleep on nights when Martin had texted me, "Can't stop waking." "Bag these," Maya said to Grant's tech, specifying the bathroom cabinet, the bedside drawer, the plug-in white noise machine with a suspicious aftermarket port, and the router, Delia added. "If you're controlling calendars, you're controlling the internet." We stood in the hallway where my ankle remembered its own betrayal. I thought I was clumsy. I murmured, "You were interrupted," Delia said. "We're putting full stops back at the end of your sentences." Martin found a sweater he loved and hadn't worn in months. He put it on like a ritual and sat at the dining table. The one we bought when extension leaves meant holidays. "What happens to them?" he asked, voice small. Not seeking revenge, just weather. "The paper fights back," Maya said. "There will be charges for the fixer if he arranged the clinic. There will be fraud counts for the pre-need filing and the forged discharge. If the doctor who signed those older certificates turns out to be someone with a face, we'll invite him to meet his license again." "And Ava?" he asked. "Even smaller, because fathers are a soft species." "If her texts show knowledge and coordination," Maya said evenly, "she answers to the same nouns. Youth explains. It does not absolve." She softened. "You can love her and still let the law do the part you can't." Light joke number 3. "Also," Delia said, "we'll charge the typography with conspiracy." I smiled, because humor is WD-40 for stuck hearts. Grant's team left with labeled bags that made prosecutors purr. We made tea because kettles are emergency responders too. Martin stared at the steam and then at me. "Why did you come today?" he asked. "You could have stayed home." "Because the invitation had my name," I said. "And because I don't let thieves throw parties in my city without a chaperone." He laughed one clean note, the way a room laughs when it recognizes itself. Then he sobered. "I'm sorry," he said, looking at the ring dent that time still remembers, "for letting someone else narrate me." "Apology accepted," I said. "Amends pending." Academic phrase, addendum. Restorative process. Not to be confused with platitudes, asks the person who harmed to face the human scale of their choices, and the person harmed to name the repair they can bear. Not reconciliation, calibration. Evening arrived without theater. We ate toast that tasted like trust reheated. Maya drafted motions, Delia drafted lists. Grant texted 2 words, "in custody," attached to a photo of a suitcase half packed with cash envelopes and a folder labeled Veil Scripts, inside which there were no scripts, only an invoice numbered 001. First clients are the worst. They teach you you're invincible. We moved Martin's pill bottles into a locked bin with a key that would live on my keyring until boredom made us both forget where danger had once kept its toothbrush. I called his primary doctor from the kitchen, explained the day in nouns, and booked a proper appointment to unwind herbals and check the heart beneath the hurt. Before I left, I walked quietly back to the stair landing. That treacherous edge now underlighted by a lamp Delia plugged in with the authority of an electrician of fate. "Not today," I told the shadow. "Find another house." It obeyed. Back home, I hung the blue dress where it could not pretend to be armor and watched it turn into fabric again. The ivory envelope sat on the console. Now a record, not a taunt. I took out my notebook and added 3 more lines to the living room choir. What we accept stamps that mean stop. What we expect doctors who exist where their names do. What we will do, attend every room where our names are used. The fan hummed. The night respected dim. Somewhere downtown, a chain of custody form learned my name by heart, and at St. Bartholomew's. A custodian scraped buttercream off a tile and hummed a hymn that forgives mess as part of the liturgy. tomorrow. Bank cameras would give us angles. Pharmacists would remember faces. And a judge would teach the word undo not to be shy. We would show up with dates. We would lead with verbs. And quietly, stubbornly, we would begin the long, boring business of putting the floor back under our feet. Morning met us at the courthouse annex with fluorescent manners and coffee that tasted like compliance. Maya had a stack of filings fat enough to hold a door. Delia had a list of names she wanted to visit before lunch. Lieutenant Grant walked us through the overnight fixer in custody. Ava released, but phone seized. Sable in a holding room with a lawyer whose tie believed in itself too hard. "We'll need to nail down Dr. Noah Vale," he said. "And the drug path who ordered, who filled, who paid. Pharmacies talk when their cameras remember." We started with medicine. Because bodies don't like suspense, Martin's primary, Dr. Callow, saw us at 8:30, the kind of physician who keeps his pen in a sober pocket. He reviewed the pill bottles we'd bagged, doxylamine dosed, like bedtime had a grudge. Rest tincture with no ingredients listed. And an unmarked vial Sable called herbal adaptogens that lab later translated as antihistamine plus diphenhydramine. A duet that teaches stairs to tilt. Callow's eyebrows traveled north and stayed. "These combinations don't cure sleep, they impersonate it," he said. "They can drop blood pressure, scramble balance, and hide the fact that the patient is unwell. If someone wanted you quiet, they chose convenient chemistry." Elder wisdom for appointments where science must unbraid harm, always ask the body to speak first. Paper follows. Outrage can wait in the hallway and practice its diction. From there, we visited the State Medical Board's office, a floor that smells like rules. No avail. Maya told the clerk. License. The clerk typed with a rectangle of seriousness and frowned. No avail is not and has never been licensed here. Delia slid a second slip across the counter. "Try Dr. Jonah Vale," she said softly. The clerk typed again. A record bloomed license inactive. Discipline pending. Current status deceased. Car accident last year, the clerk added. Eyes doing the math of coincidence. But someone's been prescribing under his number. We traded the look people share when a thread finally reveals its spool. Grant's partner phoned in a cross-check scripts in Martin's chart bore Vale's NPI. The signature looked like a stencil. "We'll need staff names," Maya said. "Anyone who answered phones, anyone who faxed refills." The clerk, now a co-author by temperament, printed a list. Quirky, odd sidebar, a doctor's NPI, a national provider identifier, is like a social security number for prescriptions. It's public, so pharmacies can confirm who's who. But private enough that it was never meant to be a costume. When an NPI outlives its owner, software should flag it. Alas, some software naps. We followed the list to a clinic suite painted rental beige. The plaque still read J. Vale, MD in letters that hadn't learned about death. Inside, a fish tank rehearsed constant forgiveness, and a receptionist pretended the 1990s were still hiring. "We're closing," she said brightly. Grant's badge disagreed. "In back." We found a nurse who looked like she hadn't slept in a season Mara Kinsey, badge lanyard cracked with use. Hands clean the way good hands are. "I won't lie for him," she said before we could ask. "I did that once, told a family. Doctor stepped out, faxed a refill we should have shredded, and it ate 3 inches of my heart when Dr. Vale died." A consultant came monthly with standing orders and grocery cards for the office. He said we were honoring continuity of care. Her laugh was a dull fork on a plate. The orders were sedatives, worded like tea. "Reeve and partners?" Delia asked. Mara nodded. Him or someone orbiting him. Thin tie, thinner empathy. He said our names would be safe because no one reads the second page of anything. She rubbed her forearm. "A private ritual. I knew it would hit someone's stairs. Light joke number 1. Whispered to the fish tank, "Second pages are my love language," I said. The tank bubbled agreement. Maya slid a legal pad across the break room table. "Tell us the playbook," she said. "Slow and boring, I'll make the verbs loud later." Mara breathed like a swimmer and began call from a care coordinator tied to a caregiver agency. Request for gentle sleep for a client prone to sundowning. Faxed form with Vale's scanned signature. Pharmacy willing to fill for a coverage gap. Pickups by someone who signed family friend. And, after a few quiet weeks, a new call escalating to travel care stronger rest to stabilize during flight. The drug choices aimed not at coma, but at clumsiness and confusion a fall here, a complication there. Pre-need funerals dovetail right after, Delia said, as if reading a weather map. Cash. The fixer books the clinic as a prop. Probate file drafted with a short form. Bonds already arranged through a friend of court who owes a favor. She looked at Mara. You just became the person who helps us teach the software to wake up. Academic phrase of the day. Systems, vulnerability, exploitation. The public argument that harm often scales not through genius, but through familiarity with the parts of a system that nobody monitors, gaps between agencies. Autofaxes, temporary overrides, long holidays in billing. The debate, do we patch the code or train more librarians with whistles? Grant asked Mara to come downtown to give a recorded statement protective order for her included, because fixers dislike leaky boats. She accepted, eyes finally letting in a thin stripe of relief. We left the clinic and walked to the pharmacy that appears on Martin's labels. The manager, a man whose tie communicated conciliation by stripes, met us in the counseling nook. We filled 2 doxylamine scripts with Dr. Vale's NPI, he admitted. Refills signed by fax. The pickup signer was the bride. He winced. The word had not aged well since yesterday. We have security footage. Pull it, Grant said. In the register records. Cash or card? Cash, the manager said. Ashamed of money's long career, large bills. Back at Maya's office, we watched the footage sable at the counter, hood up, sunglasses off because cameras like eyes accepting the white bag with rehearsed gratitude. A timestamp played peekaboo with our timeline and then shook its hand. We watched a second clip 2 weeks later, Ava. Ponytail stern, signing A. Hail on the screen. She practiced the H like someone imitating heritage. Delia murmured, I want the stylus. Light joke number 2. I told Maya we needed to send thank you flowers to whoever invented timestamps. She said roses with thorns, please, so the lesson would hold. By afternoon, Grant had a warrant for Reeves' office. They found invoices to coordination partners. A rate card that made grief into a product line. And a document titled Travel Protocol VIP that read like a lullaby written by a wolf. On the bottom, MD contact J. Vale. Legacy NPI. Next to it, farm any chain willing to fill fax. Next to that, family position narrative around peace, dignity, and tired of fighting. He wrote the words he would put in our mouths, Martin said. Quiet as a bruise. I nearly swallowed them. We paused, because pausing prevents breakage. I poured tea into cups that hadn't asked to serve a revolution and set out crackers that could hold a room steady for 2 minutes. Then we turned to the last gap, the nurse's aide from the night I fell. Record said H. Quell clocked in, but no one by that name held a current license. Delia traced the batch number to Helena Qualls. Terminated from a different agency last year after documentation inconsistencies. Her address became our next quiet door. Helena opened it with the frightened dignity of someone who knows their ladder is missing rungs. I didn't push you, she blurted. I wiped the rail with disinfectant because she told me to. And then you slipped. She said it was normal. Normal is a mat, I said gently. Not a plan. Maya explained immunity for truthful statements, a lawyer if she wished, protection if she feared Sable more than poverty. Helena's shoulders dropped. She paid extra for maintenance tasks. Helena whispered. The list included degloss wipe surfaces until they felt dry. She said acetone was fine. The stair rail felt like glass. Quirky, odd. Sidebar, 2-acetone will indeed strip oils from wood and make it slick enough to teach caution a lesson. It's for nail polish, not handrails. Most housekeepers know this because grandmothers told them. Grandmothers are a data set. We should cite them more. Grant added Helena's statement to the file with the care of a man building a bridge in real time. Maya drafted a charge memo. Delia printed labels until the printer's tray looked like it had learned Latin declensions. Martin, in a spare room with the door open and the kettle audible, called Ava. He put the phone on speaker so we could be witnesses to decency. Come home, he said. Bring yourself only. We'll get you counsel. Don't pack narratives. Pack pajamas. Light joke number 3. And a phone charger, I added softly, because even redemption dies without 5 volts. We ended the day where safety likes to keep its desk, the judge's chambers, where ink forgives neither spelling nor schemes. Maya argued for a no-contact order from Sable to every elder she had served in the last 3 years. We'll notify families, she said. We'll give them a checklist: railings, meds, wills. Who holds the proxy? Who holds the passwords? The judge signed, one swift line that honored every almost that didn't happen. When we finally walked outside, evening had taken charge kindly. The city didn't clap. It recalibrated. I rode with Martin back to his house because houses panic when left alone after big days. We plugged in a new lamp at the top of the stairs and installed a strip of non-slip, like a blessing you can step on. Before I left, I wrote 3 new lines on the index card quire and taped it to the fridge between a magnet of a lighthouse and a dentist reminder overdue by one fixer. What we accept medicine with names and math. What we expect caregivers who don't need disguises. What we will do, check the rails twice. The stories thrice. The night negotiated itself down to a decent dim. The floor stayed honest, somewhere. A registrar updated a page to mark a dead doctor truly gone, somewhere else. A nurse slept with easier lungs. Here, a man and a woman no longer married. Newly aligned boiled water for tea and learned the sound a house makes when it starts believing it will keep you. The morning after the pharmacy tour. The city put on its librarian sweater again, quiet, orderly. Coffee that remembered its manners. Lieutenant Grant texted at 8:03. Ava coming in with counsel. You can observe from the glass if you like. Might help if she sees a face that isn't performing. I put on soft shoes and brought a notebook that had never lied to me. The interview room looked like all interview rooms, neutral paint. A table that believes in rectangles. Chairs that audition for good posture. Ava arrived in a cream blazer sharp enough to slice a rumor. The makeup was careful. The mouth was tired in a way 20-year-olds resent, her attorney. A woman with the patience of long winters. Touched her elbow once and sat. Grant set the rules on the table without banging them recorded. Voluntary. You can stop. You can step out. You can ask me to rephrase. Then he slid a printed thread of messages across the laminate. These are yours, he said. Not accusing, just locating. We'll ask simple questions. Ava stared at the paper as if it were a language she had once known. The texts spoke in their own quartet of fonts, gentle exits. Vale's NPI, probate short form, honeymoon clinic. Don't forget the degloss. She lifted one page between her fingers the way you hold a photograph of a mistake you still love. It wasn't supposed to be. Like this, she said. And the room's oxygen took one polite step closer. Elder wisdom for mornings when someone realizes their verbs have teeth, don't drag, don't absolve.
Sit like a witness to a weather front. Let accountability arrive in complete sentences. Grant asked about the money who funded the designer backpack, the rent for independence, the tuition deposits for a school she had deferred twice because family things. Ava's jaw did the arithmetic no one likes. Mom's husbands, she said finally, voice the size of a stamp, and then Martin. She said I was entitled after what Dad didn't do.
What did your dad not do? I asked through the glass, silently, as if she could hear it anyway. Ava kept talking to Grant, but for a second her eyes met mine, and I saw the small girl inside the suit counting her disappointments as if they were collectibles. Grant placed a photo of a funeral home brochure between them. Who circled expedited? He asked. Ava looked at the ceiling, the floor, the closing door of a good story. I texted the number. She whispered, Mom circled. She always circles. Light joke number 1. Bedside volume to my notebook. We're charging highlighter ink with conspiracy. 2. I scribbled. The notebook maintained professional neutrality. Maya arrived, sat beside Grant, and pushed a second stack forward bank screenshots, ATM timestamps that loved our timeline. Tuition payments that smelled like other widowers' bank accounts. This wires to your rent, Maya said, tapping gently. Here's the date you texted gentle exit 36 hours later. That loop is not an accident, it's a conveyor belt. Ava flinched. She told me she began. And the sentence went somewhere small to put on shoes. When it returned, it brought fewer adjectives. She told me men want saving. She said peace is an industry and I should learn the family business. She said I was helping. Academic phrase of the day, moral disengagement. The public argument that people learn to switch off their scruples by renaming harm gentle exit. Diffusing responsibility, doctor approves, or comparing to worse, at least it's not violence. The debate is how fast the switch gets easier to flip and what flips it back. Grant didn't press the bruise. He pointed to a different page. You also texted, I hate this, and don't make me pick up the bag again. He folded his hands. That's the switch flickering. Ava's attorney leaned in. My client is prepared to cooperate, she said. Full access to devices. She'll ID the fixer, the grocery cart deliveries, the pharmacy trips. She'll testify to the degloss instructions. She touched Ava's elbow again, a lighthouse gesture, and she will enter a program if the court allows grace. Quirky, sly-rod sidebar in some courthouses. A cooperating witness sits on a wooden bench that predates everyone's mistakes. The grooves in the seat are historical records of nervous bodies. There's no plaque. But the wood holds a kind of civic muscle memory people can change, and the building has watched it enough times to keep spare patience. Grant nodded. We'll mark cooperation, he said. But understand knowledge is a noun with responsibility attached. You carried a bag. You signed A. Hale. You will answer for that and also for helping us stop it. They broke for air. In the hallway. Ava stopped in front of the glass and spoke to my reflection as if it were a future she could borrow. You were married to him, she said. Not as a challenge, as an inventory. Did he always need someone to steer? He always needed someone to tell the truth before the room did, I said. That used to be me. Then it became your mother. Except her truth came with invoices. I kept my tone night radio low. You can choose a different apprenticeship. She nodded once. The way a person agrees to carry something very specific and no more. I'll give them everything, she said to the air, then to her attorney. And I'll pay back what I can, even if it's $10 at a time. Light joke number 2. We accept installments, I said softly. Checks made out to verbs. Back in the room, Maya opened a laptop and coaxed a drive image from Ava's phone onto a sterile stick. It populated with folders named like roommates, pics. School, notes, Ava too, and one called Recipes That Wasn't. Inside were PDFs labeled Veil Scripts, Preemie Template, Probate or Short, and a Google Doc titled Talking Points Dignity. He wrote that, Ava said quickly, meaning the fixer. He said families like bullet points. Maya scrolled. Bullet 3 read, Frame reluctance as love. He didn't want to burden us. Bullet 6, if asked about timeframes, say, sooner is kinder. Bullet 7, avoid death, use transition. I felt my ribs audition for villain roles and then choose restraint. Grant back the stick. This is the spine, he said. You've just given us vertebrae. By noon. Sable's counsel tried a performance in the hallway about vindictive ex-wives and misinterpreted compassion. It died of lack of oxygen in a building that had already met our timestamp choir. Delia handed him a copy of the pre-need receipt with yesterday's date and the funeral home address circled in unflinching ink. He blessed us with silence. We stopped briefly at Martin's to deliver the noon medication that had a real label and a friendlier half-life. He opened the door in the sweater that kept his pulse company and gave Ava the kind of hug that understands revision without promising erasure. You'll have counsel, he said. You'll tell the truth. You'll eat. That is the order. His voice tried to wobble and then remembered its spine. After lunch, we visited the bank, the manager, who had perfected the art of contrition as customer service, led us to a small room with a printer that spit out apologies and statements. We watched the footage Sable's white sneakers stepping up to the ATM that loved her face. The thin tie fixer 2 nights later doing a matching withdrawal across town. Ava the week after with a ball cap that did nothing for her bones. The timestamps formed a square around the pharmacy dates and the clinic calls. Geometry was on our side. Light joke number 3, I told Maya we should send a fruit basket to Pythagoras. She said judges prefer pears to proofs, but we'd bring both. In the late afternoon, we drove to St. Bartholomew's because Father Andrew had called with a small request. A parishioner left something for Miss Brooks. It turned out to be a folded sheet of notebook paper slid under his office door. In block letters, I cleaned the rails when she said, "Didn't know. Sorry. No name. Just a doodled star and a teardrop. Delia photographed it, then placed it in an envelope labeled Anonymous Rail and patted the flap as if shame could stay put if you were gentle." As we walked back through the nave, I stood at the aisle where I had raised a calendar instead of a voice and let the light from the clerestory talk me down from the idea that salvation ever arrives tidy. It does not. It arrives with forms to file and a casserole schedule and a shopping list that includes non-slip tape. Academic addendum if moral disengagement names the off switch. Moral re-engagement names the flicker back on an apology written in block letters. A bag set down. A drive unlocked. A father's boundary offered without theatrics. A building full of strangers who picked up chairs and made room for the truth to sit. We ended the day in the safest place we knew, Martin's kitchen, where kettles knew their job descriptions and chairs had signed contracts with gravity. Ava sat at the table and made a list titled Amends, and the first 4 lines were boring in the best way testify honestly. Return funds, get a job that sells nothing but hours, tell the truth to people I lied to. She numbered them in pencil, allowing for revisions. Good. I opened my notebook and fed the living room choir 3 more lines, then taped them next to the dentist reminder like a hymn card. What we accept, apologies with receipts. What we expect, daughters who switch the lights back on. What we will do, keep a chair warm for the day after justice. Night practice dim. The house tried out its new honesty and found it fit, somewhere. A thin tie man read a warrant and attempted a charm that had expired. Somewhere else. A nurse washed her hands and did not dream of faxes. Here. A father rinsed teacups. A daughter drafted a different life in pencil.
and I put the blue dress away without ceremony. Already thinking about Thursday soup, Tuesday wore courthouse gray and a to-do list that didn't believe in drama. Maya spread a paper map of the next 48 hours on the table boxes to tick. Nouns to escort affidavit supplements, device imaging, pharmacy sworn statements, and one quiet trick I loved on site. The pearls, she said, tapping Delia's velvet envelope, are admissible for what they already captured. But we can use them once more controlled environment. 1 step from temptation. 10 steps from entrapment. Delia slid a second clasp across the laminate, identical except for its appetite for batteries. The replacement charges by contact, she said. If the bride wants her something old back before arraignment, let her. We'll meet at property release with a smile and a signature. Lieutenant Grant approved with the nod of a man who has built many boring bridges. We'll also set traps Sable taught us to set, he added. The fake clinic number now forwards to my recorder. Probate will accidentally email a short-form inquiry to the fixer's account, if anyone bites. They bite the hook with their legal teeth. Elder wisdom for days when justice must be patient, you don't have to outrun the wolf. You have to walk steadily until the wolf trips over its own story. Wear shoes that forgive sidewalks. At noon, Ava returned with a stiff ponytail and a softer posture. She handed Maya a spiral notebook labeled Amends, inside a calendar, contact lists, and a diagram of the care network her mother used, agency friend. Pharmacy clerk who looked away, funeral home cousin of a cousin, and the fixer at the center, labeled thread. I want the argument to be about nouns, not me, she said quietly. Light joke number 1, I told her. That notebook is going to make a prosecutor cry happy tears. And Maya added, we prefer our prosecutors hydrated, but we'll allow it. Grant's team prepped the property release gambit. Sable's counsel had filed a motion item seized that were clearly decorative should be returned pending trial, the pearls included. The judge, amused and careful, allowed a supervised pickup at the station. Let beauty have its day in custody, he said. We all appreciated his faith in chain of custody forms that can wear jewelry. Quirky, odd sidebar pearls are layers of nacre laid over a grain of irritation, calcium carbonate sheets stacked like tiny shingles. The luster is the sum of patient layers. I considered this every time Sable's necklace caught light. Beauty made on a wound has a long memory. At 3, Delia and I took seats in an unadorned interview room dressed as a release desk clipboard. Property tags, a camera the size of a forgotten fly. Sable entered with her lawyer and that spa day composure she keeps in a separate pocket. We're pleased the department recognizes distinctions, counsel said. My client's heirloom is not evidence. Chain of custody will be your friend, Delia answered pleasantly, lifting the velvet. The substitute clasp kissed the strand and woke. Sable fastened it with a small performative sigh, then turned so we could see she still owned mirrors. Some things belong on a throat, she said. They remind a woman to lift her chin. Or to clear it, I murmured. Light joke number 2, unamused pearls continued their work. Grant offered terms Sable could wait in a conference alcove while counsel reviewed additional inventory notes. She took the chair nearest a potted ficus and, within 2 minutes, leaned to whisper at counsel, a low stream that threaded simple words into plans. The mic drank carefully, Vale's number burned, short form still at taller. Ava did she fold. Funeral cousin can move the date if the deposit hits, if Martin panics. We pivot back to tired counsel. To his credit. Hissed, stop talking. But the rope had already unspooled. The pearls hummed like a small appliance satisfied with its assignment. Academic phrase of the day, consciousness of guilt. The public argument that people who start hiding footprints are telling you, in a dialect of behavior, that they know the mud is theirs. Lawyers fight about which footprints count, Juries often know the grammar by heart. Outside. The other trap sprung. The fixer thin tie. Thinner Future called the fake clinic number that now belonged to the state and left a voicemail worthy of Theater 2 VIPs, one moved up due to family stress. Need rest compound, ready for transit. Grant listened twice, labeled it, and forwarded to the file named Thread. Light joke number 3, I told Delia we owed the ficus a commendation. She said we'd put its name on a plaque near the evidence fridge. By early evening, we had enough to stop improvising. Maya drafted motions with verbs set to chair height motion to revoke bail. Motion to expand the protective order to cover every elder on Sable's client list. Motion to freeze the fixer's accounts labeled advisory. The judge, who had a face for audits, signed 3 before dinner. We took a breath. Then we went to see a man who had printed the wrong forms for too long. The funeral home sat under a prim awning, its brochure rack full of euphemisms pressing their Sunday clothes. The manager, sleeves moral but rolled, met us in a side office. She said, pre-need gives families peace. He offered immediately. Confession without prompting, cash. No beneficiary signatures. I liked the bills better than the type. I knew better. Maya set a small stack on his desk receipts. Timestamps. The pre-need expedited circle that now felt like a bruise. Name people, she said. Calm as a blood pressure cuff, let the verbs light the room. He named cousin Jolene, who made introductions. A courier who came at odd hours. A printer with a template that shaved days where grief needed them. He agreed to testify and to host a workshop when this ended, how paper should hurt less and never earlier. Because we have to fix not just villains but vents. On our way out, we passed the arrangement room where roses without thorns waited for hands that didn't want to bleed. I thought of how survival grows barbs wherever it's cut. Mine had grown paperwork. Knight nosed in politely. We gathered at Martin's because his kitchen had committed to being the command post of ordinary. Ava chopped vegetables like she was editing a message. I made Thursday soup on a Tuesday because some rituals heal on contact. Delia installed skid tape on the back porch with a zeal I wish Wood could write down and mail to other porches. Grant stood by the kettle and called the station. Pearls recorded. Fixer's voicemail captured. Property release. Check. Martin sat with his sweater sleeves pushed up. Forearms telling the truth, his voice couldn't yet. What do I do tomorrow? He asked, not defiant, curious. Like a student who has decided to pass the class. Doctor's labs at 9, Maya said. Then you sign the affidavit we drafted. Then you call 3 elders you know who've hired companions and tell them to check passwords, rails, and proxies. Then you nap. Then you eat soup with verbs. He smiled thin, honest. Soup with verbs, he repeated. As if ordering for a table of one future and several regrets. Quirky, odd, sidebar, 2 skid tape is silica grit embedded in a weatherproof adhesive. It adds friction without demands, which is my definition of a good friend. You measure twice, you peel once, you press it down and trust rain to do the praising. Around 10, Grant's phone lit court granted the bail revocation. Officers collected Sable from her pearl-lit alcove before the necklace could negotiate a second release. The fixer's accounts blinked into freeze. A Cayman concierge inbox auto-replied with sunny lies. A small victory, stamped with dates, walked itself onto the calendar. We stood on Martin's back step and let the cool decide our spines. Ava, shoulder smaller, said to the doorframe, I don't know how to forgive me yet. You don't have to, I said. You have to do tomorrow. She nodded, relief at being given a verb instead of a verdict. I wrote 3 new cards for the cabinet choir. And Martin, to my delight, taped them himself. What we accept, patience dressed as procedure. What we expect, wolves to trip on their own leashes. What we will do, return beauty to throats, and truth to paper. We turned off lights like we were dimming a theater after a community play where everyone lived. The house made that good settling sound old wood makes when it signs the treaty again, somewhere. A ficus in a police alcove breathed chlorophyll over a recorder that had captured a plan pretending it was concern. Somewhere else. Software flagged an NPI that had outlived its doctor and stayed awake this time. I washed the soup pot and watched a small ring of fat make planets on the surface, tiny worlds that would be gone by morning. Martin stood beside me. Not a groom, not a patient, not a victim, just a man who could learn verbs at 68. He dried the bowls, then set them down with a care that felt like apology nailed to practice. When I left, the sidewalk chose dim correctly. I walked home with sensible shoes and the knowledge that boring traps had worked. Pearls had earned their pension, and tomorrow's list already knew its lines. Not triumph, continuity. I hung the blue dress back among the cottons that don't require speeches. The ivory envelope sat filed under evidence instead of wounds. The fan hummed. The night stayed in its lane. And I slept like a person who trusts the tape on the stairs and the stamps on the orders and the steady hands that will ladle soup tomorrow without asking the bowl to clap. Wednesday put on courthouse shoes and a temperament that respected clocks. We met in Maya's conference room, the long table with coasters that believe in boundaries, while Lieutenant Grant briefed us on the morning's arraignments. Fixer is moving toward a cooperation deal, he said. Voice like a well-tuned stapler. He brought a thumb drive labeled Protocols. Sable pleaded not guilty. Counsel argued misunderstood caregiving and asked for release. Judge set bond high and conditions higher. Delia slid a folder toward us. Inside printouts from the Pearls Encore and the fake clinic voicemail. The transcripts read like a blueprint drawn by someone who never expected the walls to be inspected, induce confusion. Book travel care. Root probate via short form. Stage dignity. Each step had timestamps that looked back at us without apology. Elder wisdom for days when evidence piles politely anger is a fast fuel. Procedure is a steady one. Use the steady. The bridge you're crossing today was built by boring. Careful hands. Honor them by stepping evenly. Maya opened a second folder with the quiet authority of a person who can fold storms into paragraphs. Discovery requests are out, she said. We'll also file a notice to every family on Sable's client list. And this matters we draft Martin's victim impact statement now, while the shock still remembers its nouns. Martin. Sweater sleeves pushed up like he was ready to learn woodshop, nodded. Tell me what to say, he asked. Not helpless, teachable. I don't want to perform. Tell the judge what the plan stole before it could steal you, Maya said. The stairs you stopped trusting, the doctor you needed to see, the daughter you almost lost to a story. He swallowed. Okay. A courthouse clerk buzzed in. He had the look of a man who writes legibly for a living. Judge Lang wants counsel in chambers in 30, he said. Pretrial logistics. And Miss Brooks, he turned to me. Unexpectedly, Father Andrew asked if you'd stop by after. The choir wants to donate the wedding deposit to an elder safety workshop, they asked. Would Thursday soup be involved? Light joke number 1, tell them soup is always admissible, I said. The clerk's mouth twitched small mercy in a long hallway. We walked to court. The arraignment room hummed with a population of paper. Sable sat at counsel table, pearl-less and performing poise like a side job. Ava, on a back bench with her attorney, kept her eyes on a legal pad labeled in pencil, Tell the Truth. The fixer stared at his folded hands as if they had finally resigned. Judge Lang took the bench with the calm forehead of a person who reads everything. We are here to set boundaries and calendars, she began. Not to audition speeches. She ticked through conditions: no contact with prior clients, surrender of passports, monitoring for any clinic calls, and my favorite, no altering of household surfaces in any elder home without documented work orders. The courtroom couldn't help itself. A soft, stunned laugh traveled the pews like a breeze that found consent. Academic phrase of the day: general deterrence. The public argument that a sentence should not only address the person who harmed, but signal to the rest of us which bridges are off limits. Critics say it turns people into billboards. Supporters say billboards save lives. Today, the sign read, "Coercive care is not care." After, in chambers, Lang surprised us by being practical instead of theatrical. "Miss Ortiz," she said to Maya, "propose a restitution framework for families we can verify quickly. Mr. Grant, coordinate with the medical board to flag any NPI shenanigans within 24 hours system-wide." She glanced at me. "Miss Brooks, the court is aware you triggered the chain of nouns. Stay close to counsel and drink water." We did as told. Back at Maya's, Grant unpacked the fixer's thumb drive. Inside folders named like mediocre spy novels, shore leave, silent room, calendar mercy, and spreadsheets that treated grief like a unit price. One tab listed VIP Travel Month 1, 2, 3 with initials that regret recognized. Martin's initials rested under Month 1 like a fly under glass. He stared, then placed a flat palm on the table, borrowed my steadiness, and kept breathing. "I was a schedule," he said quietly, "not a person." "You are a person who interrupted a schedule," I said. Different noun. Quirky, odd sidebar courthouse clocks tick at 60 beats per minute by design. Studies show people testify calmer when the room's metronome matches a resting heart. It's not magic, just civics with a second hand. I imagined the clock helping Martin's pulse choose a lane. Ava spent the afternoon with the DA's investigator mapping the business. She pointed at arrows with the precision of someone correcting bad signage. "This goes here. That cousin calls this number. The grocery cards came from this drawer." She looked up once, across the table to Martin. "I'm sorry," she said simply, without adjectives. He nodded. Not because it erased anything, but because tomorrow needs furniture and apology is a chair. Light joke number 2. Delia labeled evidence bags like she was addressing Christmas presents to chain of custody. I told her to save a tag for the ficus. "Already on the list," she said. Late day. We met Father Andrew in the parish hall. Long tables. Coffee in urns old enough to remember choir scandals. A bulletin board where casseroles find purpose. He pressed my hands. "Priest and neighbor, we say speak now or forever hold your peace," he said. "Thank you for choosing Speak Now with receipts." The choir voted. Deposit becomes workshop seed money and a stair tape fund. Maya sketched an outline on butcher paper, workshop care versus control. Panels a pharmacist, a nurse like Mara, Grant on scams, the medical board on NPIs, Delia on home safety, a section titled How to Say No with Paperwork. I added Thursday soup in the corner and drew a ladle with more confidence than talent. On our way out, we passed the nave where someone had left a single thorn on a windowsill, as if the roses forgot one weapon or the church remembered not to dethorn the world completely. I pocketed it, not as a trophy, but as a study aid beauty with boundaries. At dusk, we returned to Martin's to draft the impact statement. He stared at the notebook like a trailhead that had to be trusted. "Start small," I said. "A day. Pick one." He wrote, "I stopped going upstairs at night. Then I started forgetting names for things that kept me safe. Then, after a long pause, my daughter carried a bag I should have kept closed." He pushed the notebook to Maya. "Use what helps," he said. "Throw the rest away." "Nothing here is trash," she replied. "It's all flooring." We ate soup because all roads return to broth when civilization needs a tune-up. Ava set the table with the seriousness of penance done with hands. Delia checked the skid tape with the sole of her shoe and declared it an 8 out of 10. She would not explain the rubric. We did not ask. Grant's phone buzzed. The medical board pushed a statewide alert. Any prescription under a deceased NPI freezes for manual review. The fixer's account spilled more names. The DA's office began dialing families like a triage center that respects midnight. Judge Lang emailed a terse line, restitution plan acceptable. Draft orders by morning, somewhere. Software woke up, somewhere else. A clerk finished a long day and put their pen in a cup with a sound that meant done. Light joke number 3. I told the radiator in Martin's kitchen it had competition from courthouse clocks. It replied with a superior hum. Night took its polite place. I wrote 3 new cards for the cabinet choir and handed them to Martin. He read them, nodded, and taped them next to the dentist's reminder. What we accept, clocks that keep our courage paced. What we expect, judges who prefer verbs to violins. What we will do, teach the town how to tape its stairs. Before I left, Ava stopped me at the door, voice very small. If the judge asks me why, she said, what do I say that isn't a performance? Say, I liked money better than honesty until honesty got a face, I said. Then say what you're doing next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Specificity redeems more than speeches. She wrote it on her palm like a cheat sheet for a test that would grade on verbs. Martin walked me to the porch. The new tape underfoot felt like hope disguised as sand. He raised his hand, a wave a little like the one we learned the day we stopped being married and started being something less named but more useful. The street practiced dimness with discipline. I walked home with shoes that forgive sidewalks. The thorn in my pocket reminding beauty what it costs to be honest. And a small schedule for tomorrow tucked under my tongue like a prayer that speaks in bullet points. Tomorrow, lab results. Draft orders. Calls to 3 elders about their rails. A meeting with the choir about the workshop's snacks, and a visit to Helena with a notarized letter promising protection, not triumph, continuity with receipts. At home, the blue dress hung looking like fabric again. The ivory envelope slept under evidence. The fan hummed the metronome that keeps a room from rushing itself. I set the thorn beside the index cards and turned off the lamp that makes a halo without preaching. The dark. Trained now. Chose dim. And I slept as people do when clocks and courts have agreed to keep time with their better selves. Thursday woke like a ledger that prefers neat columns. Judge Lang's signed orders came through just after breakfast restitution rail for verified families. NPIs flagged statewide. And a line I wanted to embroider. Coercive care is a form of control, not compassion. Maya printed copies on paper that smelled faintly of courthouse and ambition. Delia texted St. Bart's Hall 5 p.m. workshop. Choir is bringing chairs and opinions. I made soup, because Thursdays are unionized. We started the afternoon at Helena's apartment. She opened the door wearing the brave face you borrow for the first apology you mean. Maya read the protection terms slowly, no retaliation. Relocation stipend if needed. The state's number on a card even nervous fingers can dial. Helena exhaled like a drawer stuck since winter finally opening. I'll testify, she said. I'll tell them about the acetone and the list that called it D-gloss. I'll say the word slick like it bit me. She hesitated. Do I have to say I didn't know better? Elder wisdom. For people who worked under bad maps, you're allowed to say, I didn't know once. After you know. You must say I won't again. Keep both sentences. Retire the first when it starts asking for dessert. On our way to the church, we stopped by the pharmacy. The manager, contrite tie. Sleeves rolled, had assembled his staff. He'd already taped a sign on the backroom wall, no fax refills on deceased NPI. Call, verify, document. He looked at me the way people look at a fire alarm that also bakes grateful and slightly confused. The system should have caught it, he said. We will catch it.
Light joke number 1, I tapped the sign. Put a smiley face and it becomes policy, I said. He didn't. It already was.
By 5. St. Bartholomew's Parish Hall had become a civil defense classroom. Folding chairs in rows, urns of coffee made by someone who respects bitterness. A tray of cookies that refused to perform. Father Andrew pinned a banner over the piano, Care versus Control, How to Tape Your Stairs and Your Story. The choir handled registration like a benevolent bureaucracy name. Neighborhood. One worry you brought from home. Pastor Reed from down the block came with casseroles and a sign-up sheet for check-in pals. We decided a town can be a family when necessary.
Maya opened with nouns. We're here to turn rumor-proofing into routine, she said, pointing to a butcher paper agenda meds with names, NPIs and you, paper proxies, home safety, what the law hears, Thursday soup. She introduced Mara Kinsey, the nurse whose hands are clean in the heroic way. Mara unspooled the playbook without drama. If the prescriber is a fax and the license can't say hello, it's a no. If anyone says gentle exit, ask for the clinical indication and dose. If they can't say both, call the board. If a caregiver discourages visitors while bills increase, widen the circle, not the silence.
Academic phrase of the day: collective efficacy. The public argument that neighborhoods stay safer when people believe they can solve problems together, eyes on the street, hands on the rail, voices at the meeting. It's not nosiness, it's civic inventory. Critics say it can become surveillance. Advocates say it becomes soup. Tonight, it became soup. Delia's segment was part stand-up, part hazard manual. She brought a demo stair rail and a bottle of acetone, then declined to dramatize it. Instead, she passed around 2 swatches of wood, one oiled. One stripped and invited people to feel the difference. The room shuddered, the small honest shudder groups do when their palms become eyes. Friction is a friend, Delia said, pressing down a strip of skid tape until it consented. Friends don't need disguises.
Quirky, odd sidebar, that black anti-slip tape. Many brands publish a coefficient of friction, COF rating. OSHA likes it above 0.5 for walkways. ADA likes 0.6 on level and 0.8 on ramps. Translation: your foot prefers math to vibes. We handed out little cards with the numbers. The choir loved the decimals. Lieutenant Grant walked people through a handout titled, If Someone You Love, Hires Help, 3 columns, ask, write, verify. Ask, who's your prescriber? Write names, dates, doses. Verify, call the board. The doctor's office, the pharmacy. He told them when to call his office threats, forgery, out-of-state clinics with sunglasses for logos, and when to call the medical board, faxed signatures, dead NPIs, prescriptions that use euphemisms. He was calm and unglossy. The room relaxed the way rooms do when competence doesn't pose.
Light joke number 2 during Q&A. A woman asked, "What if the caregiver hates soup?" I answered. "That's not a crime. But it's a red flag." Laughter. Then notes. Because laughter teaches. We ended with an altar call for paperwork. Mara and a pharmacist helped people fill out medical information release forms so their chosen humans can talk to doctors without going backstage. Delia gave away skid tape in lengths cut with a kindness that measured twice. Father Andrew collected the choir's donation in a coffee can labeled Stair Fund and shook it like maracas when the room needed to remember joy is legal. Ava came late, hair down, sleeves rolled, a box of spiral notebooks under one arm. On the top notebook, in block letters, amends. She took a breath and faced the row where 2 older women sat with their purses like history. "I'm Ava," she said, not hiding the shake. "I type words that made harm easier. I carried bags I should have dropped. I'm here to return nouns and to listen." She handed out notebooks and a list she had written with Maya Power of Attorney 101 how to say no in writing. No more faxes. What a real clinic looks like. The two women nodded slowly. One patted her hand with the exact weight of mercy a wrist can bear. We packed up to leave when the side door opened and a man walked in, holding a small package wrapped in old newspaper. He looked like someone who apologizes to the air before stepping in front of it. "For Miss Brooks," he said, and held out the parcel. Inside lay a single pearl on a chain. Simple clasp. No battery, no secrets. "Note from my wife's jewelry box. She loved a true thing. Thank you for returning those to our street. J.W. Widower, 2021. I touched the pearl. It warmed like a word said right. Light joke number 3, I told Father Andrew. This one clicks only when Joy says so. And he answered, "Then wear it to Thursday soup." On the walk to the car, my phone buzzed. Judge Lang restitution orders filed. First checks next week. Also statewide memo issued, no dethorning truth in elder care. Couldn't resist. I laughed into the night. Because a judge with a small joke is a civic treasure. Back at Martin's. We debriefed around the table that has seen worse and now prefers soup. He'd spent the day calling 3 elders he knows men who like schedules. Women who like not being hustled, I said. Check your rails and your proxies. Call me if you want to ride to the bank. He reported. Half proud, half shy. All 3 said yes. Ava washed bowls as if absolution could be measured in circles. I started the bookstore Monday, she said, a little startled at her own sentence. Part-time. Real hours. Receipts. Martin slid an envelope across to her. No cash. Just a list, budget, first repayment, 2 nights a week soup duty. She grinned. Soup with verbs, she said. Our new family crest. Before bed. I took the widower's pearl and swapped chains, my clasp for his. A quiet blend of histories, and fastened it at my throat. It didn't record. It remembered. In the mirror. It caught the kitchen light and did not ask to be a metaphor. It asked to be itself. I wrote 3 new lines for the cabinet choir and left them on Martin's fridge beside the stair tape numbers and the choir's cookie schedule. What we accept, neighborhoods that learn. What we expect, beauty that doesn't lie for anyone. What we will do, keep soup hot and paper true. The night dialed itself to the correct dim. The house. Taped and honest, made the small creaks old wood makes when it says yes to staying upright somewhere. A software patch kept a red flag raised. Somewhere else. A nurse slept without faxes tapping on her conscience. Here. A father rinsed spoons. A daughter practiced local nouns. A priest counted stair tape money with a grin. And I lay down with a pearl that had retired from espionage and gone back to being a circle of patience. Tomorrow's list was already flossed lab results. Restitution envelopes to fold. A visit to Helena with muffins. And a call to the funeral home manager to schedule how paper should hurt less. Not triumph. Continuity now with more chairs. Friday put on its clerk glasses and clicked the day into place. Lab results first. Dr. Callow called at 8:11 with numbers that sounded like a tidy kitchen, electrolytes back in range. Blood pressure behaving. Liver whispering thank you for the reprieve. He fine-tuned Martin's meds with names that could introduce themselves in daylight. Then said the sentence you want a physician to say after chaos, nothing exotic. Just remove the sabotage and let the body remember its job. We thanked him, the way you thank a librarian, for finding the exact shelf. At 10. We met Maya to finalize the victim impact statement. Martin read the draft aloud in a voice that had practiced not auditioning. I stopped going upstairs at night. He read. I started forgetting names for the objects that kept me safe rail. Pill, friend. He looked up at us, then added a line in pen. My daughter almost learned the family business I never wanted to run. Maya nodded and wrote the note, Judges love handwritten amendment, present tense truth. Elder wisdom for statements that must carry weight without fireworks, choose verbs a tired person can lift. Stopped. Started. Almost will move a bench farther than metaphors with glitter. Lieutenant Grant texted Fixer pled to conspiracy. Coup proffer at 1 p.m. Sable moving toward trial. Counsel sulking. We arrived early at the DA's suite, where conference rooms smell like paper that won't apologize. The Fixer thin tie. Thinner future looked smaller, like a billboard folded down to a brochure. He pointed at flowcharts labeled shore leave and calendar mercy, naming names without touching adjectives. We sold rest, he said. We packaged peace. We called death a brand. I'm sorry, it didn't fix anything. It put hooks in the right places. Academic phrase of the day. Criminogenic narratives, the public argument that when industries legitimize harmful stories, quick dignity, gentle exits, painless transitions. Individuals inside them find it easier to rationalize crime. Policy fights over who writes the scripts. Today, a judge would decide who stops the play. At noon, restitution envelopes arrived from the clerk, checks to 2 widowers and 1 family whose matriarch had narrowly dodged travel care. I watched Maya sign the transmittal with a pen that never squeaked. Quirky, odd sidebar courthouse envelopes still use gummed flaps. You can taste institutional dust if you forget to use the sponge. We use the sponge. Civilization is details. In the early afternoon, Judge Lang held a combined hearing bail revocation for Sable, acceptance of the Fixer's plea, and scheduling. The courtroom ran on 60-beat mercy. Sable wore county beige and an expression that petitioned mirrors. Ava sat with her attorney, hair in a plain tie, knuckles unadorned. Martin's sweater had a new resolve. My pearl kept its memoir to itself. Lang began with a list that refused drama. We are here for 3 decisions, she said. Mr. Reeves's plea, Miss Kerr's bail, and the calendar. The Fixer's lawyer offered remorse in sentences that at least remembered to land. The judge accepted the plea, praised useful specifics, and noted we will not outsource accountability to eloquence. Then Sable's counsel stood to recite misunderstood caregiving and vindictive ex-wife like tired hymns. Lang let him finish. Then read 3 lines from our Stack Bank ATM timestamps. The pre-need circle. And the Pearl transcript whispering Vale's number burned. Bail revoked. She said, conditions stand. We detain. Light joke number 1 as the deputy led Sable away. The courtroom radiator exhaled a long, satisfied hum. I told Maya, your competition for steadiest noise is winning. And she whispered, I yield. Ava requested to address the court. Her lawyer nodded once. The judge raised an eyebrow in the kind way. Ava stood and did not perform. I signed for packages, she said. I typed words that made harm sound kind. I'm surrendering devices and money I can't return fast enough. I'm taking a job where receipts are only paper, not euphemisms. She swallowed. I will testify. Please allow me to make installments on decency. Lang inclined her head. The law is not a church, she said, but it does accept pledges in the form of Tuesdays at 3. We'll structure your cooperation accordingly. Outside, the courthouse steps remembered to be public. Reporters waited. We did not narrate for their cameras. Light joke number 2, bedside volume, I told the stone lions. No comment is a complete sentence. And the lions agreed by staying marble. We walked to St. Bartholomew's to drop off the stair tape fund total and schedule the next workshop. Father Andrew met us with a ledger and a grin. We raised enough to tape 24 stairways and print 1,000 care versus control brochures, he said. Also, an anonymous donor covered coffee for a year, so repentance will be caffeinated. He handed us a thank you card signed by half the choir notes like birds, messy and sincere. At 3. Restitution envelopes left Maya's hand for the mail bin a small sound. But I swear the building felt it. We then visited Mara Kinsey at the board. She was training new eyes to spot dead NPIs like potholes. She'd made a slide with a simple flow name, NPI. License, status. If any box says ghost, stop, she instructed. Dry as chalk. Light joke number 3, I whispered to the projector. This is my favorite PowerPoint since soup. And the bulb did not blow, which I took as agreement. Evening brought a call from the funeral home manager he'd scheduled how paper should hurt less for 2 Tuesdays from now. We'll cover where grief meets forms, he said, tugging at a sleeve of remorse. No euphemisms. Good. We confirmed the pharmacist on the panel and penciled Pastor Reed for casseroles. Tauna's family continue. Back at Martin's. We set the table like a ceremony for ordinary. Ava placed the bowls with careful competence. Bookstore likes me, she reported. I shelved travel under fiction once by accident. Fixed it. We cheered politely. Small corrections deserve applause with indoor voices. Martin read his final statement once more, then folded it like a map you can trust. I'm ready, he said, not brave, exactly, prepared. We took a walk to the bench outside St. Bart's as if the day needed to see us sitting without strategy. The autumn air had found the key of helpful. We talked about future logistics, Ava's Tuesdays at 3, the bookstore schedule, Helena's relocation, the next soup rotation, the dentist appointment reclaimed from under a fixer's calendar. Continuity is an instrument. We tuned it together. A text from Grand Forensics matched acetone on rail. Helena's statement corroborated. Pharmacy footage ID'd both pickups. Indictments next week. Another from Judge Lang's clerk, restitution checks, first batch posted. Another from the medical board statewide NPI patch live. Systems moving, wolves tripping. We headed home at dim o'clock. I pinned the widower's single pearl back at my throat and stood at the mirror for a second, not to admire, to thank. Beauty without espionage is a relief. I wrote 3 new cards for Martin's fridge choir while the kettle negotiated a second boil. What we accept justice that prefers receipts to speeches. What we expect patches where systems leaked. What we will do, keep benches honest and stairs gritty. Quirky, odd sidebar, 2 skid tape, wears down unevenly in houses with dogs. The claws add unexpected abrasion that actually helps grip. Civilization is sometimes improved by creatures who do not read memos. Night laid itself down without bargaining. Ava texted from her room, made $34 in tips recommending paperbacks. Tuesday at 3 pantry shift confirmed. Martin answered with a thumbs up that looked strangely like a signature. Maya emailed our morning schedule impact statement at 9 meeting with victim advocates, at 10 lunch at St. Bart's Hall where the choir practices doing things on purpose. Before sleep. I visited the stair landing where language turned last month and stood in the honest grit of new tape. Stay, I told the floor. It did. The house, taped and sensible. Agreed to practice uprightness again tomorrow. Somewhere. A clerk locked a drawer gently. Somewhere else. A nurse turned off a monitor and let silence do its good work. Here. A man rinsed bowls. A daughter penciled Tuesdays. And I placed the index cards beside the pearl thank you note and turned off the lamp that makes a halo without preaching. The dark, well-trained, chose dim. We slept like people who have work in the morning that looks boring from a distance and is therefore the right kind. Saturday arrived with the soft clatter of envelopes. Restitution checks first batch sat like little white boats on Maya's desk, stamps squared, corners polite. We carried them to the post office because some victories prefer sturdy shoes. The clerk weighed each one as if decency had ounces. Next truck out, he said. The scale nodded like a deacon. From there,
The day asked for ordinary Martin's dentist at 10 cleaning, a molar that forgave. Ava's bookstore shift at noon display table labeled paper that helps you keep paper, and St. Bartholomew's Hall at 3 for the first official care versus control clinic outside the emergency version. We brought soup, of course, Thursdays on a Saturday, because mercy isn't bound by calendars. Father Andrew had recruited half the neighborhood. Mara set up a real versus pretend prescriber station name, NPI, license, status, and a bowl of butterscotch for people who guessed right. The pharmacist taped the no ghost NPI sign higher and added a smiley face because policy enjoys a sticker. Delia rolled in a suitcase of stair tape like she was checking in friction at an airport. Elder wisdom for sunny days that could have been dark. Keep one hand on your joy and one hand on your checklist. The world will try to trade you one for the other. Decline. Both are part of walking home upright. We opened with stories, not speeches. Widower J.W., the man who gifted me the single pearl, stood, cap in his hands, and said, "If somebody had taught me NPIs, I might have argued with the facts, no theatrics." The room adjusted its breath. Ava, sleeves rolled, passed out spiral notebooks labeled amends and proxies, and then took her seat in the front row like a student who had decided to graduate in verbs. She didn't say much. She sharpened pencils and refilled water cups. Useful is louder than apology when you repeat it. Light joke number 1. I told the coffee urn it was officially part of clergy and should take a bow. It hissed approval with a steam you could almost call liturgical. Around 4. Judge Lang slipped in wearing weekend jeans and the expression of someone who reads everything anyway. She listened from the back, waved off thanks with a small judicial scowl, and left an envelope with a note, for chairs. Justice sits better when people can. Inside, a check that made folding tables consider buying tuxedos. Quirky, odd sidebar folding chairs have a design standard called a safe tilt angle, roughly 12 degrees, so even when a room leans into a story. The chairs don't. I thought of that as we set them up infrastructure that refuses melodrama. At the Q&A, a man asked, "What if the caregiver says, 'I'm making it hard by asking questions'?" Mara answered. "Then you're doing it right," Grant added. "And if they say, 'We don't do paperwork,' say, 'We don't do you.'" The room murmured the contented murmur of a town memorizing a script that saves ankles and afternoons. Academic phrase of the day, procedural justice. The public argument that people are more likely to accept outcomes, even hard ones, when the process felt fair, clear rules. Respectful voices. Chances to speak. Decisions that didn't flirt with whim. Tonight's process was coffee, decimals, tape, and names that picked up when called. We packed at dusk. The stair tape can clinked happily. The sign-up sheet for check-in pals reached the second page. Father Andrew insisted on walking us to the door like an usher in a kinder movie. "We'll keep doing this," he said. Not because of scandal, because of civics. On the sidewalk. We met Miss Klein carrying lemon cookies in a tin that had survived 3 mayors. "For Thursday soup," she said, "even on Saturday." She peered at Martin like a headmistress who remembered his GPA. "You look like a man with stairs worth climbing again." He grinned, cheeks doing their first honest rehearsal in weeks. "Working on it," he said. We took the long way home and stopped at the bench outside St. Bart's, the one our afternoons have worn into trust. A breeze tried on autumn. The pearl at my throat did nothing but remember, which is all jewelry owes us. Martin's phone buzzed. He checked, then smiled. "Helena's new landlord," he said. "Lease signed? No stairs? 2 railings anyway. We high-five the air because sometimes dignity needs a ridiculous gesture." Light joke number 2. I told Delia we should print Rails Now, drama never on t-shirts. She said she'd wear it to court if the judge promised to laugh. Evening returned us to the kitchen where soup tells the truth at spoon speed.
Ava placed placemats, her choreography learned, her face less sharp with self-indictment. I shelved Bleak House under mystery by mistake. She reported. A woman asked if it has a villain. I said, only systems. She bought it anyway. We applauded with spoons.
After dishes. The doorbell rang. A courier, polite as punctuation, delivered a thin box from the medical board inside, a framed certificate for Mara and a note for waking the software. We texted her a photo. She answered with a heart and the word nap. Heroism sleeps. Grant called to say the fixer's spreadsheets had named 3 more coordination partners. Now under investigation. Prosecutors would bundle Sable's charges with a pattern count and an enhancement for targeting elders. This will be boring, he said cheerfully. My favorite kind of justice. Light joke number 3, I told the radiator it had found its people. It hummed at 60 BPM, like a courthouse clock practicing ASMR. We ended the night on the back step. Martin adjusted the porch light motion sensor to polite instead of paranoid. Ava, sitting cross-legged, sketched the bookstore floor plan so we could see where her Tuesdays at 3 fit without breaking anything else. I pulled out my index card choir and wrote the final 3 lines I'd been saving for a day that deserved them. What we accept, compassion that shows its math. What we expect, neighbors who speak up before the rail go slick. What we will do, keep pearls honest and stairs gritty, in that order. I taped the card next to the dentist reminder our family's constitution living beside calendars and coupons. The house approved with a small creak. Before sleep. I walked to the stair landing alone. The tape felt solid under my bare feet. The lamp made a halo that didn't preach. Stay, I told the night. And the night, trained by repetition and receipts, chose dim. I lay down, the widower's pearl cool against my skin, and thought of the first envelope ivory, glossy, cruel. We had mailed our own today, plain, useful, kind, somewhere. A clerk sorted them into routes 3 kitchens, where relief would arrive with a stamp, somewhere. A nurse turned off a fax and poured tea, somewhere. A judge closed a file with the tired grace of a person who believes repair is a profession. Here. We slept like people who will get up tomorrow and do the unglamorous work again, soup. Tape, forms, calls, chairs, because that's how you keep a town from learning the wrong song. The envelope that tried to humiliate became a map. The pearls that tried to spy became a witness. The stairs that tried to forget friction learned grit. We started with a dare dressed as a wedding and turned it into a workshop where coffee and decimals taught courage. Along the way, names stepped forward: a fixer who sold rest, a dead doctor whose number refused to die, a nurse who stopped lying for ghosts, a daughter who replaced euphemisms with Tuesdays at 3. We answered with nouns that do not wobble NPIs. Timestamps, affidavits, skid tape, and with rituals that do not apologize: soup, chairs, calls, cards. Justice arrived not as fireworks, but as envelopes, restitution checks, court orders, memos that made software stay awake. A judge wrote that coercive care is control. A pharmacist taped a sign that said no to faxes from the dead. A priest rerouted a wedding deposit into stair tape and coffee for a year. We kept our humor where it belonged: soft, local, honest, so no one mistook it for mercy. We kept our anger leashed to procedure so it could cross bridges without falling in. If you're listening in the quiet, try this: choose one small boring verb for tomorrow and do it kindly. Check a rail, write a proxy, learn the name behind a prescription, tape a step, bring soup, slip a chair under someone who hasn't sat down in a while, wear beauty that tells the truth, and retire jewelry that records. Keep a card near your light switch with 3 lines: what you expect, and will do, and let that small constitution steer you through the loud and the clever. We didn't win a spectacle. We kept a promise.
and we built a town that now recognizes the sound of steady,